Been plenty of movement in the Eastern Conference of the NBA this offseason. The Bucks added Miles Turner from the Pacers yesterday, re-signed Bobby Portis, lost Brook Lopez to the Clippers, traded Pat Connaughton to the Hornets. The Celtics, who just won the title a couple years ago, have traded away key pieces from that 24 title team, sending Drew Holiday to the Blazers, Kristaps Porzingis to the Hawks. Al Horford also remains a free agent. After a disappointing end to the year, the Cavs are reloading for next year as they acquired Lonzo Ball from the Bulls while losing Ty Jerome to the Memphis Grizzlies. We take a look now at the odds to win the Eastern Conference, courtesy of ESPN Sportsbook, which has the Knicks and Cavaliers tied as the favorites at plus 290, followed by the Magic at plus 425. David, which Eastern Conference team are you highest on right now?
I'm going chalk here. I'm going Cleveland. I'm going with the Cavs. I think that if you're Cleveland, you're telling yourself, hey, we didn't have Darius Garland. He was hurt for a little bit of that second round. We're going against the Pacers, who were just riding a lightning bolt, and they caught fire right at the right time and stole a game that was critical to us. But I'm feeling like we're coming back as a 60-win team. We added Lonzo Ball. We added some of that defense, which I think was one of the issues that they were concerned about. And we should feel like we should be able to come back and win the East. Boston is not there, which I think was probably the biggest competition, Indiana aside, of course. I think you're saying Boston's not there. The Knicks don't have a coach. Maybe there's some sort of issue there. But we feel like we're the best team in the East. We just had a bad run in that second round.
Yeah, I'd say there's a reason the Cavs and Knicks are tied at the top, right? The Cavs obviously are coming off the 64-win team our season. They have a very good team. Adding Lonzo Ball, I think, will help them if he can stay healthy. However, there are a lot of concerns about health with the Cavs. Lonzo Ball, huge injury question. Donovan Mitchell the last couple of years has worn down as the season's gone on. Darius Garland has worn down the last couple of years as the season's gone on. So I'm going to go with the Knicks. Yes, they don't have a coach, kind of a problem, but they have time to get a coach. The game slot starts till October. I thought they had a really nice job over the weekend getting Gershon Yabusele, getting Jordan Clarkson, adding to their bench, adding three-point shooting, two things they didn't have. This is a team that got to the conference finals last year and has a clear identity of how they're going to play, and I don't think a new coach is dramatically going to change that because of the pieces they have. So I like their depth. I like their durability. I like the fact that they've shown an ability to get through a couple rounds of the playoffs, something the Cavs haven't done yet. And while a couple other teams, Atlanta, Orlando, have made jumps up, these teams falling off, I think it could be prime opportunity for the Knicks.
Are you saying coaching doesn't matter, or are you operating under the premise that the man Mike Brown, who got a second interview, who's more accomplished than Tom Thibodeau, to be fair, is likely to be the head coach? Because to pick a team that doesn't have a coach as the best in the East indicates that maybe you think coaching's a little bit overrated.
Well, I would say that I think the Knicks are going to, certainly Mike Brown would be a good coach. We'll see if he lends there. But I think more than anything else is that the Knicks team is what it is. They didn't go into this offseason not really knowing what their roster was going to look like, right? Their top 7 guys are set. They had one slot they could use for a player above the minimum. They signed Gershon Yabusele, who fills several holes for them. Jordan Clarkson's a nice piece as a bench minimum scorer. They could get some other guys too with minimum slots. I mean, look, this is a Knicks team that obviously still needs to get a coach, still has some other things to figure out. But to me, this is much less about the Cavs and the Knicks. It's much more about the Pacers falling off and the Celtics falling off. Those teams going into the conference finals, I would have felt, or going into the second round, I would have felt like would have been teams that could really push on this year and be the favorites in the East. With them gone, you kind of have the Cavs and Knicks just standing here sitting at the top of the conference by default.
Yeah, I do think it is those two teams. I'm just kind of stuck. Like, if you're talking durability, the Knicks were probably as healthy as they've been in a while last season. I'm not sure if they can sustain that for this season. There's a lot of minutes that they played last year. They had just gotten Brunson back in time for the playoffs. Both of these teams are going to have some injury concerns that are possible, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at a playoffs where the Knicks are not as healthy this year as they were last year.
I'm going to guess the starter minutes go down next year, just a hunch. Windy, which Eastern Conference team are you highest on right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you look at the top 5 finishers from last season, in the regular season, 3 of them had catastrophic injuries and have had to radically change their roster. So saying Cavs and Knicks that's the only honest answer. Now, let me say 2 things. One, I'm very tempted to bring up the Philly 76ers here, because when you look at their roster, it is hard not to be impressed by the level of talent that they have on it, and you know that they're going to have the injection of VJ Edgecombe. But I don't want to be embarrassed when you bring back footage of this in 3 or 4 months. So I'm going to try to avoid, shame. I just want to say one thing about the Knicks. The Knicks had a schedule, and it was hard to necessarily sell it after the wake of the Mikal Bridges trade. I realize, again, that was a trade that a lot of people felt a certain way about. But the Knicks looked at the Celtics and said, they can't keep that team together. They're too expensive second apron. They look at the Cavs. The Cavs are now in the second apron. And the Knicks' plan was built completely around Jalen Brunson's willingness to take way less than his max contract to keep them out of the second apron. So here the Knicks are, a built-out team. Now, I'm not saying if a star player doesn't come available that they don't go, right into it. But the Knicks are a built-out team now. They legitimately go 8-9 deep. And they're looking at the Celtics. Of course, nobody could have foreseen the Tatum injury, but the Celtics would have had to have taken their team back a step or two this year for the second apron. And they're looking at the Cavs, who are very strong, but are facing second apron realities into the future. And the Knicks' wager on this is that they can outlast these teams, that they're going to outlast the second apron teams because they're not in there. They're going to be able to add to their roster, and they're going to be able to make trades. Right now, if a star player became available, the Knicks would be more available to trade for that star player than the Cavs, because the Cavs are a second apron team. So my answer is Knicks and Cavs and Knicks, however you want to say it. It's close either way. It's going to be to bet on health. But the Knicks are in a position of very good strategy. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't, but I think it needs to be pointed out.
Sounds like the mayor of Cavs Corner knows that I'm right, but won't admit it because he's the mayor of Cavs Corner.
Well,
sounds like to me.
Now what's interesting is Windy did bring up a team that, speaking of Cavs Corner, a reference to the Hoop Collective podcast, there was a team that Windy just brought up that you said before last season, Bontemps, definitively, with no argument, as the best big three in the NBA of Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, hold them accountable.
I am.
They at the time were the only team with 3 All-Stars from the previous season on it, so it was definitive. And then they decided to not play last season, which is kind of a problem.
But is your definitive take last year applicable to this year?
Well, here's the thing. If the Sixers are healthy, right, which again, there couldn't be a bigger if than if the Sixers are healthy. But if the Sixers are healthy, I think you can make a very good argument they have the highest ceiling of any team right now in the Eastern Conference, because that means Joel Embiid is playing like an MVP. That means that Tyrese Maxey is playing like an all-star. That means Paul George is playing like an all-star. If those 3 guys are healthy and playing the way they were 2 years ago, then yes, I think you could certainly put Philly in this conversation. However, I don't think anybody can seriously do that right now when we have Joel Embiid having had surgery in the spring. We have not had an update on that. We have no idea what Paul George is going to look like coming back this year. This team did just lose Gershon Yabusele. They're pretty light in the front court. So look, if Philly is healthy, I do think they're going to be in the mix in the East, especially with all these injuries. But again, I just don't think we can really seriously talk about it until we see them. Yes, exactly.
I'm not doing this. We're not doing the Philadelphia ifsers anymore. I'm not. You said if like 10 times about this team. I am not falling for this.
It was brought to me.
I have fallen for this so many times. Last year
I wasn't arguing.
Pump the brakes on this team, on the panic and all that stuff. I am fully in disbelief that Philadelphia is going to pull this thing together. I'm not falling for it again. Fool me once, all the time. You fooled me about 10 times this Philadelphia 76ers team. I'm not doing it.
Brian Windhorst, very smart. Just set up Bontemps on purpose.
That's
he
right.
knew what would happen as a result. Very smart by Bontemps. By Windy there with Bontemps. There is a team we haven't talked much about in the East. Let's bring in our bombshell. Kevin Clark. Kevin, you have a team that you are high on this offseason, into this season in the Eastern Conference.
Prince, how you doing?